Welcome to the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast, where we explore the latest in enterprise trends, tech, and strategy with the top leaders shaping the future.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Onstage with Enterprise Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Tejdeep Desai, Assistant Technology Editor at Enterprise Talk, an enterprise technology publication. Here at Enterprise Talk, we bring together global thought leaders and innovators who are reshaping the future of enterprise technology. Our conversations reach over 1.3 million business and technology leaders worldwide. Today's discussion covers one of the most dynamic and fast evolving areas in tech, which is AI operations. As AI becomes deeply integrated into business processes, a new challenge is emerging, which is how to maintain and manage AI systems that don't always behave predictably. Traditional frameworks like DevOps and MLOps have served us well, but with AI agents and LLMs becoming central to modern enterprises, we're entering a new operational era, one where reliability monitoring and real-time troubleshooting require fresh approaches. To explore this huge shift, we are joined by João Freitas, General Manager and Engineering Lead for AI at PagerDuty. João leads the company's AI initiatives and represents the Lisbon office, focusing on growth and culture. With over 2 decades of experience in software development and machine learning, João was previously the CTO and an AI startup, and also spent years at Microsoft working on speech technologies and data engineering. João, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tej. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So, Joel, let's start with the basics. We often hear about AI agents and LLMs being revolutionary, but they also introduce a level of unpredictability and traditional systems that traditional systems didn't have. So, from your perspective, why does this unpredictability pose such a big challenge for established operational frameworks like DevOps and MLOps?
Yeah, so you're right. The LLMs came to revolutionize a little bit how we do operations, right? And so the DevOps and MLOps are also changing with this new technology. But LLMs also are non-deterministic, right? The same as AI agents that typically use LLMs as their brain, informally speaking. And so these technologies make that the traditional methods that we use in DevOps and MLOps become harder to apply, right? And so we need to change them and apply a little bit different. But essentially, the key challenges that you find are the non-deterministic behaviors that are associated with LLMs. LLMs also hallucinate. They have inaccuracies. The fact that you can have also agents communicating between them, right? And you can have there's new topologies of agents emerging, new ways for agents to interact. That also creates different behaviors, and so the way we use these operational frameworks, right? It also needs to change. It needs to adapt, right? We know that current LLMs also have some reasoning limitations. There are scenarios which sometimes are more complex, or some things that seem common sense that LLMs sometimes struggle, right? Probably this will be tackled in the near future, but this is the reality today. So they're really good at gathering knowledge and exposing knowledge, and given some context. But there's simple things where LLMs struggle, right? For example, if you try to play a game of chess with an LLM, the LLM tends to not follow the rules, although it was trained with that information, right? So these type of behaviors that are non-deterministic, they present risks to organizations, right? So which brings me to probably the other point, which is there's also security and compliance risks that come associated with the use of AI agents, the use of LLMs, that also need to be part of how do we establish our operational frameworks, and how do we adapt them.
That's really interesting. So, given that, how are organizations rethinking their operation frameworks? So, we often hear about LLM ops and agent ops emerging as new disciplines. As you said, could you explain how these extend or reimagine their existing practices for the AI era?
Yeah, when we think about digital operations, right, applied to technology and software development, we had the DevOps, and then we saw with ML rising, we saw MLOps adopting some things from DevOps and extending it to the nature of machine learning, and with concerns around data, model testing, all of that. And now with the rise of LLMs and AI agents, as we were discussing, there's new challenges, right? That we were just mentioning. And so the we need to change we need to change how we do operations, right? The typical development operations, the typical machine learning operations. But there are some learnings that we can extend from DevOps and MLOps to LLMOps and AgentOps, right? If we think about that, agents also have the need for to be maintained, and there's a level of operations there. And so we can think about things like automation. How do you release new versions of an LLM or new versions of your RAG, retrieval augmented generation system? How do you monitor? And this is a very important part, right? It's not only about building your AI system or starting to use an LLM. You also need to monitor it, and because as we said, LLMs are non-deterministic, so we need to look for things like hallucinations, toxicity, bias. And so there's a need for a continuous evaluation, and this is what's already true in traditional in traditional software, right? When you launch a system in production, you already have a lot of observability tools that capture typically logs, traces, metrics, and you track those, right? And you monitor the system. So you need to do the same thing for LLMs, and you need to do the same thing for agents, but how you do it changes. And the other part that changes is also the testing, right? How do you test? How do you test these systems? How do you maintain versions? How do you keep it traceable as well? Because if, for example, if you're having a conversation with an agent, there's context of that conversation, or if two agents are talking between them, there's also a context that you need to have in order to understand the problem that's going on, right? If there's an incident and you don't have the traceability, it's going to be very hard to understand why the agent or why the LLM gave a certain answer or an agent made a certain decision if you don't have traceability. The other part is around data management, and we talked about security, but there's also part of data privacy, compliance, which we also discussed a lot in MLOps, in DevOps, but it's also true in LLMOps and AgentOps, right? You also want to respect permissions. There's a question around how do you manage permissions with agents? Do you inherit the permissions of the owner of that agent? Do you think about a different permission system? What's the purpose of the agent? How do you map that to the level of permissions in your organization? And so how do you manage the data that it accesses or the systems that it has access? And I think the challenge here is with standards like model context protocol, which is great because it allows you to very quickly build new agents and extend agents to different tools. It also poses risks, right? You also bump into risks like data exfiltration and other security risks, or improper use of tools, right? When you start to have something a little bit more dynamic. And so there's good learnings, there's best practices that we can look at, or other frameworks like MLOps and DevOps, and adapt to the operations with LLMs and with agents. The last part I would say is around, and this is more specific, I would say probably to agents, which is how do we establish guardrails in the sense that you might not want the agent, for example, to talk about pricing, right? Or you might not want the agent to talk about certain things that are only internal to the organization. How do you keep the human in the loop? How do you have kill switches that allow you to stop the system, right, or stop the agent from acting in case of something bad going on? And then there's all how does this align with your internal policies? How does this align with your AI policies and the things that you have in your organization? And so you want to make sure that you're launching new AI systems, right? And those AI systems need good frameworks, good operations frameworks to work. But there's also how do you the challenges, as we were saying, around how do you monitor it? How do you guarantee that there's no drift, either in terms of the data or the model itself? How do you guarantee that the system keeps performing as you expect, right? As you expected the system to perform, and continues to you continue to get the value that you need from the AI system.
It sounds like we are moving from automation and optimization to something that's much more adaptive, right? So in that
Definitely.
context, yeah. So in that context, what are some of the new playbooks or resilience strategies that organizations must adopt, or how are they ensuring reliability and performance even when the AI models behave in unexpected ways?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I would say it's an area where we definitely will see some evolution. But there are some steps or some things that you might want to consider. I would say a very important point is around data, right? And the data, if you have a good data governance and your LLM and your AI agents are using that underlying foundation, underlying data, right, layer that has good governance, that's already, I would say, a major step for you to then be able to have your systems behave in the way that you would like. So data plays a big role, because if you think about an AI agent, the agent will use data points, will use data sources in order to make decisions, and that will also enrich context. And now we're talking about things like short-term memory, long-term memory, like how do you manage those memories? That's I think a really important part that we'll see probably some evolution there. Enterprises also need to I think a good practice is to start simple. Like start with a pilot, see how it behaves, start to see the ROI, right? Get feedback from users. If you aim for something fully autonomous right from the get-go, that you immediately put out to a very broad audience, you might not catch the evolution that you need for the system, right? So make it iterative. Start with a pilot and then do a bigger rollout, and then you will collect feedback. You can do A/B testing to see what works best. You can also, if you're doing model updates, continue to performance monitoring. It's also good practice to create some goal sets, some goal tests that where to which you can use to measure the performance of your system. However, this can get pretty complex, right? If you think about multiple agents acting together, and you think that agents will give you a different answer depending on the context. So depending on the conversation, you have an explosion of possibilities, because depending on the context, depending on the flow, depending on the question and who is the user and the way the user is asking the question or issuing the prompt, it will give a different answer, right? So testing will only get you to a certain point, right? But it's important to get the testing to make sure that your system at least is covering the basics. So it's important that you have tests that covers for bias, fairness, and the more you automate these processes, the better, right? The more you can run them more frequently, and the more your systems or the more reliable your systems will be, right? So the other part is, how do you set up a responsible AI, right, in your organization? How do you guarantee that the AI systems that you're building are making an ethical use of the data, inspire trust to your users, are not creating bias, and so that's also a part that is important, that many times we tend to neglect. But once again, I think these systems, as we roll them out, need to be iterative, and you can improve them as you go, right? And add more resilience and more tests, and a bigger audience also for the system as they evolve, as well as you get feedback and improve as well.
Right. So also you mentioned about monitoring, right? So that's what I was coming up with the next point. So it's also about real-time monitoring and troubleshooting. So from a leadership standpoint, what should teams or leaders focus on to successfully monitor or and troubleshoot AI systems as they run?
Yeah, the monitoring is a big part. So we could spend probably hours here discussing how to monitor, how to test AI agents in LLMs, right? And as we were saying, the systems can get pretty complex. There's I would say some industries where relying on agents to do certain actions can be a very high risk, right? But there are several situations where if you have human in the loop making the decision, the agent can still accelerate and give a lot of efficiency. So you need to manage risk, right? And monitoring and performance, as you were saying, is comes along with that, right? If you're monitoring the system, you're reducing the risk that it has. But I would say there's a couple of pillars there. One is the continuous improvement, the continuous learning, being able for your system, for your operations framework to support this continuous learning that you get in terms of what is the performance of the system, how is it behaving, are we seeing drift, are we responding to the users as we should, are the users getting the ROI that they should from the agent, right? And so that implies that your agents and your LLMs need to produce traces. Once again, going back to being auditable, make the system transparent, make the system having explainability. And so you also, as we think about monitoring, you also want to detect any anomalies, because if you typically, most companies are relying on foundational LLMs that the major players have built, right? You have some open source, but you also have the Geminis, the Claudes, and other foundational models that a lot of companies rely on, and so there's changes, there's iterations in those models as well. It's not only your system that is evolving, it's also your dependencies that are evolving, right? And so just because you didn't change the system, it doesn't mean that your system might not have an anomaly or might not have an incorrect performance, right? Because there's also differences there's also dependencies, and those dependencies are also changing. But the part of being able to do this in real time, and the part of being able to get alerts when an LLM or when a set of agents misbehaves or doesn't behave as expected, it's very important, right? So being able to have that kill switch that we were talking about, or being able to have that alerting mechanism that a human can look at it and try to understand, okay, this is expected, this is not expected, let's see what's going on, right? And so having that part where a human can step in and is quite important, and have that automation, have that embedded in your operation solution is quite important. And so, and an agent is working 24/7, so this alerting needs to be very very well established, and the first line of response could be, for example, an automation flow, right, where you use another LLM as a judge, or where you have a quick assessment of other metrics, or you compare, or you run some tests to really see if the system is acting improperly. So this is a big part of how do you establish your or how do you make your AI agents and your LLMs more mature, and how do you create the right level of accountability as well, right? We talked about that you need specific owners for the agents, you need to have policies, but someone needs to be accountable for the decisions that an agent makes. If an agent does something that's wrong, that harms the organization or harms the trust of customers, there needs to be accountability that you are able to identify, so that the problem can be fixed and someone can be responsible for it, and address it as quickly as possible.
Right. So it's clear that this shift is as much as cultural as it is technical.
Definitely cultural. Definitely, I would say probably each company will have a different approach to it, right? But there's a lot for us to think about. How do we foster this collaboration between humans and AI? Definitely.
Yeah. So, as a final thought, how do you see the industry evolving in the next few years to keep AI systems both sharp and dependable? Do you think we are close to having a mature operational framework for AI, or is this still an experimental phase?
I would not say experimental. Like if like more than 80% of the companies are using some kind of AI, right? And are experimenting with LLMs and agents, and also big part of those companies have internal systems where they're using LLMs and agents, or have even products, right, where that make use of this technology. So I would not say that. I think we are past the phase of experimentation, right? Although there's still a lot of experimentation going on, because the system is evolving so fast, right? There's so many new things coming up. So you have, I would say, some basics of generative AI and LLMs and AI agents, which I think are a little bit more mature in terms of system. But then you also have like agent-to-agent communication and new things that are coming up in terms of how do you find tools, and how do you make the access to capabilities more standard, and all of that are evolving, right? And those can be considered to be at the experimental stage. So I would say in this area, there are parts which are already being adopted and used, and companies are collecting a good ROI from it. And there are other parts which are typically experimentation. Um, but you asked also, how do you keep these systems sharp and dependable, right? There's things that in both sides, right? Whether you're at a more mature stage, or you're still experimenting and you're not sure how to use it, right? There's things that you need to think from the get-go. Security, right? Is this introducing new risks or not? Data privacy, like, is this a way for am I exposing PII, or am I exposing sensitive data to other actors that shouldn't have access to this data? Is the system that I'm building transparent, and can I trace what's going on? Can I have some level of understanding what's going on in my system? So if there's a problem, I can go and act, right? And then there's also the part of reliability that we talked about, which is how do I have the continuous loop of learning? How do I have, I would say, some level of maintenance and monitoring to these systems that allows for these systems to first work properly, don't have downtime, and if something goes wrong, I can step in and fix the issue as soon as possible, and then mitigating the impact on my users. And then there's also oversight, right? How do you keep a supervised view of how the systems are behaving, guaranteeing that there's no bias, the system is being fair, that it's not eroding customer trust, and essentially, right, if you, that you're getting the return on investment when of these systems, because you can do a lot of experimentation. At some point you'll want to get the business outcome out of this, right? So there's that's the end goal always, and so we cannot lose that out of sight. And I think having an iterative approach, it's much easier, because then you can correct course and see how you maximize the ROI of these investments. So a lot's happening, but it's an exciting. These are exciting times with in a fast-paced area for sure.
Yeah, definitely, it's interesting. Yeah, so these were my questions to you. Is there anything you would like to add from your end? Something which I have not covered or I might have missed?
No, just to summarize what we discussed, I think you asked really good questions, Tej, and we touched on a lot of important things.
Right.
As people think about building their LLMs or using LLMs and building their AI agents, they need to keep in mind, how do they make it reliable? How do they make it resilient? And how do you keep your systems sharp, as you said, right? I think that those are very important points that we talked today, and probably we'll see a lot of new things, or I would say a maturity, a more mature technology coming up during the next year.
Right. So, Joao, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here, Tash.
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Enterprise Thought Leadership Podcast. Please do follow us on social media and subscribe for more ideas and insights. Until next time.